no rules. Do lower score. There's one rule.
Welcome back to the No Mulligans podcast.
Let's try this again.
It's Scott and Jack here inside the studio at Franklin Bridge. As always, if you guys want to follow us on socials, you can follow Scott on Instagram at @SHasseyGolf. 2 S's, 2 E's. You can also follow FBPI Golf, Franklin Bridge Performance Institute Golf. And then if you ever want to know anything about real estate, Jack Beard Real Estate is my work one.
And this is new. We have an online store. Please go buy some apparel, go buy some stuff. I've been challenged by some people to start charging for things, charge more for things, do more things.
Yeah.
You provide a lot of value. And so that's hard for me, but it's look, if you've gotten value out of this podcast, how many episodes have we done together at this point?
So I started on episode 72 or 74.
And we're in
the 200s for sure.
Mid 200s or so?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
So, we've almost done 200 episodes together at no cost to the consumer.
Yeah.
This is just our free time. We enjoy doing this.
Definitely.
But we have some big goals for next year, and we need your help. So please help us out. Get some cool swag. If you're a listener but you don't have the money for it, send it to parents, family members, whatever. Have them get you some cool swag. It's on my SHassey Golf account.
Yep.
Just go on there. Go to my what am I trying to say?
The link.
Go to my profile. There's a link on there. Go ahead and buy it.
Yeah.
So we'll post it in the show notes too. But go buy some stuff. The mugs are freaking awesome. I got them coming.
No, nice.
Yeah, so they're just glasses that are clear that have the No Mulligans logo on.
I love that. I'm also excited too because I know that apparel has been something that a lot of podcasts and programs do. But one thing I am excited for is that if you guys show out and help us out and buy some of this merch too, we would love if the demand is there to make some even cooler stuff too.
Right, because right now I can only do base level stuff because.
Right.
It's dollars out of my own pocket to provide the inventory.
Yeah.
So once we get some nicer stuff, it's
off
going to be
races, baby.
sweet. Yeah.
And one thing that I really love that Franklin Bridge does is Brooks and the team do a really good job with merchandising in the pro shop, and I feel like I'm always proud to wear something Franklin Bridge.
Unless it's been a private club, people don't wear swag like that from a public golf course unless it's famous.
I completely agree.
But people love wearing the stuff here because it's so good.
I love it.
We got some cool stuff coming. Help us out. Help us build that up. And then coming in the spring, look out here over the next few weeks. I'm going to start posting when we're actually going to have our tournament series for the spring. So we're going to start it in January. We'll go January, February, March, April, and you'll see those first tournament series. Jack and I play with the pod and bring 3 people. We'll have 2 teams going, and it'll be roughly, we're looking at right now is $600 a team. Just $200 a person. You're supporting us. You're getting awesome swag that you can't get anywhere else. So this will be exclusive swag.
Yep.
And we'll have a fun format, and we'll just play and have a great afternoon, evening together, all hanging out, and just have an absolute blast. So watch out for that. Come play. First come, first serve.
Yeah, we've been talking about it too, and I just feel like it's we finally perfected as far as what we would like to do, and so it's been kind of a dream for a bit, but now I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you guys, playing some holes in the awesome early months of the year, and then on into the summer too.
We'll start local. We'll start actually here at the bridge.
Yep.
So that'll be our first one.
Yep.
And then we're gonna start to stretch out to places around here that I've enjoyed playing, or I haven't played yet, and I really want to go play, and. We'll have an awesome evening. One of them is going to be Sweetens Cove, so watch out for that. And we'll play a 6-some. That'll be the best part.
So
we'll go play 6 people.
Oh, yeah.
So that one will be a little pricier, but come and join us for that. That'll be an absolute blast. So, anywho, I know we gave you a lot of stuff on the front end. It is salesy, but you know what? We've done a lot, and I want to support this guy to my right, and we want to reach more people next year, and we can't do that without your help. So
yeah, and my biggest thing too is I just want to make sure that everybody who's listening to this is not only having a good time listening to it, but that they actually enjoy listening to it. So just being able to support the podcast with some, a T-shirt or a hat, it also helps when if Scott and I see you around the club too, to thank you guys for listening as well.
Right, we can go hey man, you got the stuff on. That's sweet.
You got the hat. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So no, you got that right. So
I love it.
We appreciate y'all, and with that, we're gonna dive in, piggybacking off of Thanksgiving week, and I I sent a very emphatic and passionate text to the group on Saturday watching the games. I'm going, you have unranked teams who've been 6-6, 5-6 for the year.
Talking about football,
right? College football, going, they're not only hanging with these top teams, they're actually like winning.
Yeah, and I mean,
for a large portion of the game.
Yeah.
Now, those teams came out on top. Florida easily could have beat Florida State.
Yep.
Auburn could have beat Alabama.
Yep.
Washington State, that was one I didn't expect at all.
Yeah.
You're going, how do they hang? And they didn't just hang for the first quarter like you normally see. They were in the game all the way towards the end of the fourth quarter, if not all the way to the last seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at that Alabama-Auburn game, which is probably the one that most everybody who's listening to this who watches football saw on that Saturday.
Right.
And, I mean, just came down to a lucky 4th and 31 play. I mean, that's nuts. But I think what I would just say is, this rivalry week, it's always the last week of the season. And getting to see these rivalries, you realize that a lot of it is it means much more to the players than the records that they have. You see, Auburn's a perfect example. I mean, it's hard to beat anybody in the SEC at any given time, and so when you give two big dogs like that, who have historically had close games, and both teams have won either way on in any given year, you have these games that are just super fun to watch.
Right.
So, I mean, what do we chalk that up to? Because at the end of the day, like Auburn, I believe, was 6-5 going into that game, and Alabama was 10-1, and so like, we're talking about mindset here.
All right.
What is it about those games where those players can't turn it on like that every single week?
Well, I think you said it already, which was like, it's rivalry week. And like, they're preparing for that. You think about it that way. I've become more about language matters, and the words that you use matters.
Yeah.
Because how you say a thing describes how you interact with said thing.
Yeah, and we talked about that last week as well, talking about it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
It's your confidence, it's like how you take up space in a room.
Right.
There's a lot of things.
And you said that game means more than their season. It's like, whoa, I think you're right. Like, I think that's spot on. And so they treat it differently. I guarantee you the coaches prep differently. We're not going to be embarrassed on national television when definitely everybody's watching, right? They watch for the big games. And so coaches prepare differently, players prepare differently, mindset-wise, they're ready to go. Hey, we're going to be the people who are going to take down Alabama. We're going to be the guys that take down Washington. Like, we're going to be the people to ruin their season. And for the most part, they maintain it. And the other team is like, coaches are trying to keep them from being arrogant, right? Like, just because they're unranked doesn't mean we don't need to treat it seriously. And until the rubber hits the road, like, oh crap, they're bringing us everything, and not just for the first 5 minutes or the first quarter or the first quarter and a half, but like, shoot, they brought it for the whole first half.
Yeah, and that's
crap, we're kind of caught with our pants down. We're not ready for this,
right?
Mentally,
right,
not physically.
That's what I've really enjoyed this year about just football in general, college and professional. Where this year it feels like it's been really up for grabs. Anybody's game. And I don't know how much you're following football, but I mean,
obviously not very much because I'm busy teaching. But.
Right, but we've just seen anything's up for grabs, and I think that's really cool because at that point now you're just finding the teams who make the least amount of mistakes will win. Right. And I really enjoy that. Or it comes down to the team who has the ball in their hands in the last second. And I think we can chalk a lot of that up to mindset too. So like, I want to talk a little bit about this going into the football analogy, but also using golf is I'll use golf to start just because that's the podcast that we're on. But you see a lot of people after they have a bad hole. Whether that's on hole 2, whether that's on hole 17.
Yeah.
I feel like the majority of people who do have those bad holes will then let it affect them further down the road.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons for that can actually be attributed to, I'm going to tie this back to something Saban said at the end. People are like, you're an Alabama fan. I'm like, I really don't care. He's a phenomenal coach, and you should listen to him.
Yeah. Even me as a Tennessee fan, I respect him.
Right. You respect him as a coach. You're not pulling for Alabama, but, like, dude clearly knows what he's doing in terms of leading a team. And so he said something at the end of the game during the interview, and I watched the interviews, the rest of the family's not. I'm like, this is where I get to learn something. He said, it's great that we won, proud of our guys. They grinded it to the very last second. But sometimes these are the ones I'm most nervous about, is the wins that you get that you probably shouldn't have gotten. Because you start to think that was enough, right? And he's talking about mine. Like, he knows that how they won that game affects how they work. Like, oh, yeah, we won that game. It's like, dude, you guys basically lost the game. You won it on the card, but you lost it because it took you that long to win it. And so he's having to shift a whole bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds' mindsets into, no, we got Georgia coming up, right? If we beat Georgia, we have a chance to make it into the college football playoff. Doesn't mean we're going to, but, like, that's our only last hope to stay in this. And so in golf, sometimes that bad hole, because people are so upset about the bad hole, they can't perceive the fact that you got away with a good hole or two or three, and it's been falling apart. Most of the time in my teaching and coaching experience, the big fall off, unless it's like an early hole, like the first hole where they're just nervous, is usually preceded by some holes or some shots that they've gotten away with, and it finally caught up with them. And so they're upset about they played bad on that hole when it's actually been headed that direction for multiple holes. They just didn't see it. They got away with it, like Saban was talking about.
Yeah, speaking of, I feel like a stretch of holes that I see that a lot on here at Franklin Bridge is when you go from hole 2 to 3 to 4. Two is a very forgiving hole.
Incredibly forgiving.
Very forgiving hole, and it's a short.
And so is 1 in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
you go 1, 2 are fairly easy starting
The
holes.
reason I'm saying 2 is because if you're at least a decently long hitter, you're going to be able to get close to the green, if not on the green, in 2.
And even if you're not, the hole's so short.
So I mean, it's just a chip and a putt in, and sometimes you can even get away with birdie, even if you've had a bad hole.
Right.
So then you go on to 3. Now, if you're playing from the way back, you've got a super long shot ahead of you, and if you're playing from the gold, I mean, it's still a green that you can't see.
Right.
So you hit it up there. Maybe you get lucky with a putt in, and now you got 4 coming up.
Right.
The 90-degree dog leg.
Yep.
You've got out of bounds on
with
your
a
left.
Tiny green. It's one of the smallest greens on the golf course.
Exactly. And you've got out of bounds on your left. You've got a hill where it's almost, unless you have a perfect lie, impossible to get it over.
It's so hard to hit from over there.
Right.
I hate when I hit a ball over there. I'm like, whew, I know how to hit this shot, but this makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then you're hitting over a creek onto one of the smallest and, may I say, most undulated greens that we have
and
here.
Elevated. So
and
like
elevated.
If you miss the sides, it's falls
drooping off
the
either
sides.
side. And so you see a lot of people, myself included, who will, post a double bogey there more likely than not.
Right.
So I feel like that would be an example. And then you've got a bunker short of a par 3 on the next hole.
Right.
So you really don't get any breaks until 6.
And then it's like, oh, finally the hole's let off on 6, but then you start pressing on 6 and 7 because, like, oh, I got 2 easy holes coming up. These are 2 birdie holes. How many times have we screwed that up with that mentality, right?
Oh my God.
It's we're just playing Auburn this year. Like, dude, they're not even ranked. You see, they've lost 6 games this year. Like, dude, this will be a walk in the park. And next thing you know, it's like, oh shoot, I just went bogey.
Yeah.
I should have been at worst par.
Yeah, and then you get aggressive on 7. And if you're not strategic on 7, that could be another bogey.
Right, and then you got 8, which is just land-wise isn't a great hole.
Nope.
And it's an uncomfortable hole. And then you got basically an island green par 3.
I mean,
for all practical purposes, it's kind of designed that way.
And so you can see how if your mindset is weak on holes 2, 3, and 4, I mean, it could be a long way into the clubhouse from there.
Yep, and then it lets up again on 10, 11.
Yep.
For the most part, and then we have our amen corner.
12, 13, 14.
But if you get frustrated there, not realizing you got away with a bunch of stuff earlier on, then you get those 3 holes will drag you down. And then you're like, ugh, sucks. And then 15's terrible. And then you play 16 poorly. There's fescue going in on 16, which is going to change that tee shot. Like, I used to just aim at the cart path on 16.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where it goes. I can miss it 80 yards right or 70 yards left. It's fine. Right. I just try to hit the cart path every time.
Yeah.
And so, but now I can't play it that way because now there actually be fescue there that I got to deal with. So now I got to consider mentally the water that's on the right. So like the golf course is getting more challenging this coming year just with that piece. They got some other things planned that are going to be fun, but just some minor little stuff here and there. But those little things change how a hole and a course feels, and it's going to start to test the mindset, which is good. Like, we need it. I can train really good players here, but I can't make great players exceptional because the course isn't hard enough.
Not hard enough, and
there's too much.
There's a lot of logistics that goes into that, but I think that the one thing that I see most with like,
and I'm talking elite level players.
Yeah.
I'm not talking average players.
Right, and again, mindset's huge. One thing that I was going to mention as well that I see a lot of low-level players struggle with is if the super that morning places the tee markers just a little bit off.
Oh yeah,
they'll just tee it straight between the two markers and hit it wherever straight is between those markers, and it could be on the other fairway.
Yep. Yeah. You're like, what are you doing, man? So it's.
And all of these mistakes compound if you let your mindset get away with you on the previous hole. That is my point.
Right. If you let it, the problem, it's not a like, oh, I'm going to be in a good mindset, out of a good mindset. Like, you can't just switch in and out. Not that easily. It requires a lot of work to switch into the right mindset. Some people come by it honestly, but very few do. You actually have to work to become a champion in your mind. You know. And if you're a champion in your mind, but you're a 36 handicap or a 40 handicap in your practice, well, you can't have a championship mindset if you have no practice. Like, that's silly. Like, there are people that do that. You're delusional at that point. If you're not putting the work in on the physical components of the game, then a champion mindset isn't going to get you there, because a champion mindset wouldn't, like, it wouldn't do that. Like, you just wouldn't. And so I was so floored that so many of the games were that close with how lopsided the rankings were, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what surprised me. You see it all the time in a game here or there, but to see so many of those games against some of the best teams in the country, against some of the most average teams in the country, was mind-numbing to me. I was like, the only thing that explains that is how they perceive the day.
I love what you just said. You said perceive, right? Or perceive, excuse me. I don't want to mispronounce it. One thing with a lot of those teams, as we're on the subject of college football, some of those teams with average records are not bad football teams either.
Correct.
I think a lot of the times when you see a big upset happen, it's because the team that's favored to win has a weak mindset against the underdog. And if the underdog has a strong mindset going into the game, sometimes that can be the only,
which is basically what we're looking at.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Auburn has definitely had a bad year when it comes to football, but I mean, by no means is Auburn a bad football team.
But I'll say this, I think they changed the landscape of their next season by the way they played against Alabama.
Completely agree.
They finished their season, even though they lost the game, on a high note. They basically said to themselves, we can play. Like, we can do this. If we come together, we work together, we do this right, we can do this.
The other thing, too, is a player or a team with nothing to protect, with no, like, legacy or reputation to protect, can be the most dangerous.
Right.
And we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, especially with I'll mention his name, Micah. Like, right. Micah, who plays like the highest level of Division II golf that you can ever play in, just his skill level.
I know. I'm trying to give him a rank. He actually texted me the other day.
Oh,
he's ranked 20th in the country right now.
Does that just include D2? Or
that's just Division II.
Just Division II. So
top 20 of there's 800 guys or 1,000 guys.
Right. My point being is that some of those guys who are in Division II are dogs. Those guys are because
They
guess
can
what?
golf their ball, man.
They have they've got no legacy to protect as far as like being on a Division I team or being in the SEC or being at a high level, highly prestigious golf school.
They still have something to prove.
They still have something to prove, and they go out there and they freaking do it, man. And so those Division II and some of those JUCO players, and that's also too if you're looking at football and you see like Hard Knocks or you see oh my God, I'm forgetting the show where they take JUCO kids.
I have no idea.
Goodness gracious. But like a lot of those guys have nothing to lose, and so they'll play their asses off. And I kind of want to talk about that with golf too, because I think you'll see a lot of people who either brag about their handicap or maybe they've got like the best equipment in their bag, or maybe they just have something that they feel like they need to protect. The person who's just going to go out there and play their ball and just plays golf to play golf, I feel like it's going to beat them 10 out of 10 times.
So we've mentioned Braden a few times. I'm excited. He's somebody I just started working with, but we've worked heavy on the mindset. So like it's fresh for me, but is this idea of like you belong at this level, but in the same sense, like what are you doing to actually get there, right? Like what makes you flip the switch? What makes you step it up to that next notch? And it's really just being able to put the work in. I sent him the video of Tiger Woods talking about juniors. You may have seen this, or maybe I sent it to you.
600
Yeah,
putts.
Hey, I have him touch. If you're going to be a competitive golfer and you want to play at the highest level, you need 1,000 touches.
Well,
a day.
What did he say about the putts? He said I'd make like how many 4-footers?
He said 1,000 touches a day of a golf club.
Yep.
And he said, now you can decide what that makeup is.
Sure.
But it could be 100 balls on the range, 300 chips, and 600 putts. I was like, a couple of things. I mean, he said a lot in that little thing. 1,000 touches a day. People are like, well, that seems like an awful lot. Yeah, because it is. Like, if you want to be one of the best, you have to put that level of work in. And when I look at students, I'm going, did you put that much in? I put close to that in when I was a kid. My parents would drop me off. Like, this is back in the days, your parents would just drop you off at the golf course, and you stayed there for 8 or 9 hours. Well, you don't just go sit and watch the football game on the TVs, because guess what? The TVs weren't that good back then, right? And you just didn't sit there. Like, you played putting games on the putting green. You went and chipped. I remember chipping for hours. I would literally take balls and put them all around the green. There'd be 75, 100 balls around the green. I'd go and chip every single one of them. I go around and do it again. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and people are surprised that my chipping is so good, even though I don't practice anymore. I was like, because I put in thousands and thousands of reps on chipping and putting. Well, I didn't do that on my full swing, which is what I need to do.
The point I'm trying to make here too, with especially with the Tiger number, what was the 4-footer number? Was it 600? Something he made.
He just he said, he would make between 100 and 200 4-footers in a row.
In a row, every single day.
Every day.
And I think what my point behind that was is being
across the green.
No. But when you make that many in a row, and when you put in that many hours, when you get up and you have an eagle putt on number 2 out here, and it's a 4, 6, 8 footer, you now have not only the confidence, but it is now a part of your identity that you make that putt.
Ooh, dude, that's so good. It's a part of your identity as a player, not as a person, but as a player. Like,
a lot of people
I'm somebody who makes putts because I'm ready for this moment.
Exactly. And a lot of people will be afraid of the disappointment or the fear of rejection, myself included, if you're going to miss a putt like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like that. Sometimes that fear actually drives me to like not only want to practice more, but wants me to focus a little bit more. Yep. And so, but when you get up to that putt, you're like, I deserve to make this, instead of, I'd be lucky to make this. And even if you don't, you tap it in. But like,
that section is so good. If you're listening to this right now, just rewind it back and listen to that whole little section again, because you said so much in that of, you've earned this, you deserve this because you've put in the work. Like, people don't put in the work.
And that's why recruits go to Alabama to play football, because guess what? Saban is going to ingrain in them a mindset of this work and this discipline, so that then when they get out on the field, they're free to perform.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
There's no fear. I feel like there's no fear in Saban's program other than just like, hey, like we go out there, we
scared
work.
of coach, if anything.
Yeah, he's scared of not doing enough to play, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's just, you start to develop a really dangerous human in a good way when you do that in anything. It doesn't mean, it could be if you're in sales, it
doesn't matter.
It could be 1,000 cold calls. It could be anything. And as long as you just put in the hours, it'll then become a part of your identity, and then you will have a higher standard for yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 1,000%. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so that's the culture you're going to have, then that's what you're going to get. And there's people that talk about it, right? But it's not about the talking. It's about the actual believing and the actual doing. Talking's a part of it. Language is a part of it. It's why teams come up with like 3 words or 5 words. Like character, charity, and sportsmanship is the Payne Stewart Award, right? Like it's based on those 3 things. So, there's defining who it is that you're going to be as a program helps you get there. And there's different ways of doing it. There's different types of championship mindsets.
And I think what those 3 words or whatever that mission or vision statement is for you, it doesn't necessarily define the program more than it is a measuring stick for my motivation.
Am I acting in such a way that fits with this?
Bingo.
Here. And
Bingo.
It's basically serves as a check on yourself.
Bingo.
I don't remember what the sign was, but in basketball in middle school, like when we walked out, there was a sign above in the high school practice at the middle school. So it's actually from the high school team, but we'd walk out and you'd hit I had to jump at that age.
Yeah.
To hit the thing above the door. But like you're reminding yourself each time you walk out of that locker room.
It's Notre Dame, play like a champion today. It's Tennessee, I will give my all for Tennessee today. It is like those things where you start to realize like, okay, I'm going to take what I've just done and I'm not leaving this field, this course, this court, whatever it is until if I'm going to do that.
Right.
With how do I want to say this? I want to fully embody this phrase or this mission or this vision whenever I'm performing.
It's one of my favorite things is like a couple phrases that have floated through our teaching. The 2 that stay are you can do hard things.
Yes.
Like that's why I'm not afraid to say golf is hard. Because it is.
Golf's really hard.
Right. But you can do hard things.
Well, in the moment that you realize that you're practicing and that you're getting better, you realize, oh shoot, this is a really hard game and I'm actually not doing too bad. Like
right. I'm figuring this thing out.
Figuring it out.
It
builds
great.
confidence.
Right. And then the other one is there's one rule. Shoot a lower score, right? So like that frames the way you look at the game, right? How do I shoot at a lower score here? It's Carson Stoller, like playing in a college tournament, and missing every fairway on the front 9 both days, but he knew he was struggling off the tee. But okay, how am I still going to get the ball in the hole even though I'm not hitting it well off the tee? Well, we figured out how to play the angles, right? And he was 5 under and 3 under on those 2 9s where he didn't hit a single fairway. Well, you shouldn't do that. You didn't hit a fairway. But he understood how to play the game. So it's those 2 phrases, you can do hard things, and there's one rule, shoot a lower score, frame the way not only our students view how they play, but us as teachers, how we teach. And so it's changing the way we're running our junior program this winter. But because we have those established now, we keep coming back to them every week in our staff meetings. I have us review those things and keep reminding us of those things because it changes how we interact with our environment. Because we're just as prone to error as the next person. I'm not a faultless human.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what's interesting is we talk a lot about mindset on this podcast, but I don't think I've ever brought this up before. I personally believe that it's the mindset that gets these players to the highest level.
That's correct.
It's not the technical ability. It's not the athleticism. I think a perfect example of this would be, oh my gosh, who was the amateur that played in the Masters this year that did really well?
No, you're asking me a question I'm not going to be able to remember.
No, it's Sam maybe. Oh my gosh, I see his face with the mustache. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say is this guy is an amateur that made the cut at the Masters.
And he stayed in it for
a long time.
Yeah.
And he was playing against other amateurs and other players that just got their fresh tour card or maybe qualified for their first Masters and like didn't make it. And this guy's an amateur who's going and dusting some of these guys with their tour card.
But he talked a lot about the mindset. Is he the guy with the tattoo on the?
I think yes,
on the arm
because of his dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't remember his name. I just remember the story.
I wish I could look it up.
Which is the part that matters, right? It's not that you remember his name; it's that you remember what you learned from him, right? Like, Jack's gonna look it up. I love this. What was his name, Jack?
Yeah, Sam Bennett.
Sam Bennett. There you go.
From Texas A&M.
Yep. So it's that he believed that he can play out there.
Yeah.
And like, not just like, okay, I'm gonna believe it. But like deep down in your soul, and the fact that he learned that from his dad, that's been years in the making to believe that. Like, you don't get there because, okay, I made it, now I'm going to decide I believe that I can be there,
Yeah, I'm thinking of another sport, one of my favorite sports, Formula 1, too, where you're getting some of these guys who are getting in these cars, and the margin for error is so small that you have to have confidence in some of that FU mentality to drive those cars. And I think that sport is, I think you still have to be extremely athletic and extremely agile to drive a car like that. But that's a definition of a sport that leans less on the body and more on the mind and reflexes. And I think that is a excellent sport for somebody to patrol those mindsets, if you will, if you want to go dabble in just the mind of a champion.
Well, you especially see it in the, I grew up loving Indy cars from my dad.
Yeah.
I never got to go. We could have gone and sat on pit row. Like, my dad had a best friend that was there, and we just never did. I don't know why.
We'll go next year.
Old enough.
We'll go next year.
We should.
There's one in Nashville. We'll do it.
But where was I going with this? I have no idea where I was going with this. But if you look at their lap times, like, the difference between them is slim, and even the guys with the fastest lap times end up having some of the worst performances.
A second is a eternity in those sports.
Yeah.
You were talking about tenths of seconds, hundredths of seconds sometimes.
Yep.
And what is that the difference of? That's the difference of turning your wheel, X amount of angle versus X plus 1. Like, it is impossible.
Right.
So anyway, I bring that up because I think those guys, they actually had I'll bring up another podcast. I'll give a shout out here to the High Performance Podcast. And they recently interviewed a excellent F1 driver, Alex Albon, who drives for the Williams team. And it's an excellent podcast. I highly recommend anybody who's listening to this, young or old, to go listen to it. But he talks about just a lot of the barriers that he had to get over in his own life to believe that he really had what it took to be one of the best. And he went through a lot of ups and downs in Formula 1, and now he's driving the best that he's ever driven in his entire career. Worth a listen if you're listening to this.
Wow. Yeah, that reminds me of a video I saw roll through of Kobe Bryant, like in one of the games, several games in a row, airballed like one of the last shots.
Oh yeah.
There's 4 of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he went the next day after he had that 4th one happen. He went the next day and literally shot the entire day. It's just like, people will just go work on the mindset. It's like, no. The mindset makes you go work. You don't just try to flip like, okay, I got to believe I can do this so I don't do that again. It's like, no, I'm going to go and practice in such a way where I never do that again.
Oh, that's so good. I needed that, just hearing that from you, that it's not the mindset itself. It's the mindset that gets you to practice, which then ingrains everything else to make it work.
Because if the mindset is real, then the action follows. If the mindset is manufactured and you don't really believe it, then you won't do the action that follows it.
Wow. Woo. Dude, we're just dropping some knowledge today.
You won't. You just won't.
Yeah,
like,
it's so true.
It's my struggle to get in the gym right now of, like, I didn't go yesterday because I'm not, like, mentally, I need to get myself in the frame of mind to go. Now, I know we talk about, like, just going is good, like, but the journey I'm about to go on, I need to, like, I still haven't actually even written down the program that I'm going to do. I've written down, like, how am I going to make my meals work and do all that stuff. It's like, no, I have a different goal this time, and I need to make sure I take the intentional time to set myself up to be able to do it. So even if
yeah.
me just walking in there wasn't going to do it because I was going to half do it,
Wow.
I need to set myself like, I know the mind's not ready yet. Let's get the mind where it needs to be. Doesn't mean my motivation's going to be high. I just need to get myself in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
By being prepared to go do the thing that I want to do.
Yeah, that reminds me of something else as far as just a lot of people think the mindset is just like going in there stone cold and being like, you know what, I'm going to go run at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Well, it's like, no, like, okay, fine. Like, if you go do it, like, congratulations. But what did that accomplish for you afterwards? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like there really has to be a disciplined plan in place to not only create the mindset, but create the habits that will then create the performance.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to do. And I think if you don't do yourself that justice by making that plan, I think that any efforts that you go to try and change your habits are just going to be lost causes.
You have to have a goal with an action plan.
I love that.
And like, if you can have goals, but goals without an action plan are just dreams. You know? And so I was sitting in here, you know, we talked about, we should, actually this will be our next podcast. We weren't sure what to do, but we'll talk about teaching the teachers. That's a lot of fun for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you know, after coming off of Houston and teaching and then educating some other teachers, like, this is fun for me, teaching the teachers. But it's like, I was watching Elijah give a lesson, kind of just snuck in, did some office work, but also like to, you know, watch how he's doing and being able to help where I can. And he was on the right thing. Yeah. And the dad happened to be in here for the first time during this lesson, and I'm about to light both of them up. You know me, I'm not going to light somebody up. But I realized in that moment that kid's giving me a half effort. I've told Elijah to push him, and he has, but he really wasn't pushing him because Dad was in the room too. But that's part of the maturing as a teacher and confidence and like, just go do it, Elijah, make him do it. And so like, I made a side comment. I was like, Elijah, you're being a lot nicer than I would be. No, Hank said that. I can't tell you the number of times Hank said that same line to me, which is a statement of, you're on the right thing. Make him do it. If he's here in front of you, make him do it. But I've decided to float a question instead. I was like, hey, bud, what do you want to do with your golf? I know you and your dad and Elijah are talking about, you know, what you're working on, but like, what do you want to do with your golf? Well, you know, I just want to hit it better. I was like, okay, so how do you know when you're hitting it better? Well, you know, I want to hit like I did, you know, at the end of school season this year. I was like, okay, so like, what were you doing then that made it good? Well, I was just hitting it better. I was like, well, there's no goal. There's no goal, so there's no action. And no matter how hard Elijah pushes him, until we establish that and be like, hey, man, we have a goal. We had one kid get frustrated in our winter program that Erica's sitting him down and we're going through goal setting. I'm sorry, but until you give me a goal and we build an action plan, you're just showing up to somebody to tell you something. And guess what? We're not that program anymore. Especially not at that level.
What my real estate
if
team...
they're a brand new beginning, I just want them to have fun with the game. But these kids are not in that category.
No, yeah. One thing that's super beneficial, which I think a lot of you guys could actually implement as well, my real estate team every year makes me create a 1-3-5. What's called a 1-3-5.
1 year, 3 year, 5 year?
Almost. So we have our main goal, right? It could be make $100,000. It could be shoot 72 next year. It could be anything you want. Okay. Now, off of that, what are 3 things that are going to be able to contribute to that goal? Well, if it's golf in 72, okay, I want to.
I'm loving this.
I want to, I want to chip. I want to do chipping practice 5 days a week. I want 2 days, or I want to work on my driver 2 days a week. I want to, make 400 putts one day, okay, or something like that. More general goals, whatever it is. And then the 5 is then get even more granular with that. What are 5 things that will help you accomplish one of the 3 things, which will then help you accomplish the 1 thing? So for the putting,
1 year, 3 year, 5 year wasn't even close, by the way. I had a feeling it wasn't that.
No,
but yeah.
But like if putting, well, here you go. I'll give you another better. Chipping, driving, putting. Okay, those are the 3 things that I
got to be better at each of those.
I got to be better in each of those. Now the putting, the 5 can be like, I want to practice. I want to make 100 2-footers in a row. I want to do 50 lag.
Do you have
I
5 for each of the 3 items?
Bingo.
Whoa. So that's
bingo.
15 things.
So now automatically, if you're ever being like,
you have your action plan right there in front of you.
Yeah, you have your action plan, and you're saying, well, I don't know what to do today. Okay, well, go and do one of the 5 things that are off of your 3, right? And so it just helps you.
This dude, I've needed this for my fitness so bad. Like, I tell you what, I'm going home tonight, and I'm going
to do a 1, 3,
I might not be able to get the 5.
Yeah.
But I know I can get the 1 and the 3.
Well, and then the one thing that I would tell you, and I'm also telling the people that are listening to this is
so good.
Really dive deep and try and find 5. My director of business ops, who helps me do this every single time, if I'm struggling to find one, he doesn't let me be like, okay, three's good enough there. No, it's 5, and you better find 5. And it's good to find 5, because the biggest thing, and we have elaborated on this with the plan, the biggest thing that you want to seek out is clarity. I think about the guy that you were just talking about, be like, well, I just want to hit it better. That's not very clear. Hey, I was shooting 72 8 months ago, and now I'm shooting 79. I want to get back to that 72. Okay, now we've established a clear, measurable goal. Right. Which now we can create an action plan in order to achieve. Right. But you're not going to get this by saying, I just want to hit it better. Like you said, how do you know? Right.
And he couldn't answer it. I'm like, the reason, and I just kind of let it be at that, and then like that kind of motivated him a little bit and kind of got Elijah excited a little bit. But I just threw those two things out and I just stayed away. Like, I let Elijah try to explain what he was trying to get him to do. Whether it was right or wrong doesn't matter. Like, it's the core problem was the kid had no goal. I just want to hit it better. He's afraid to set a goal because the goal is going to hold him accountable to what he's actually going to have to do.
Which then brings up failure, and then the fear of failure. If that's
and they're like, well, now I feel awkward. I was like, yeah, but to get to where you're going to want to get to, you're going to have to feel awkward, bud. You don't get to feel comfortable. And for the record, if you were on a football team right now and you were acting like that, you'd be running laps, son. And I can tell you what, that ain't fun either, right? Like, you've got to get uncomfortable. And so it's fun for me to look at that and go, geez, Elijah, like, your job is to follow up with this kid, and when he shows up for the next lesson, you don't let him grab a club until we establish what that is. And if you spend the entire hour doing that and then you lose the client, that's fine. But I was pissed because what was going to happen was Elijah's giving him the right thing to do, and they're going to walk away and they're going to say that he's a bad teacher. No, you're a terrible student, and like, that needs to be fixed.
That's all. That's just money.
And is there teaching involved in helping a student create clarity and goals? Yeah, but like, hey man, Elijah's been giving you the same thing for the last 4 or 5 lessons. Like, do the work. Yeah, he's working his tail off to make you better, and you're not giving him anywhere close to a fraction of that effort.
And we've done podcasts on this in the bat. Oh my goodness! Whoa, tongue twister. We've done podcasts in the we've done podcasts in the past about how golf practice is too easy. Yeah. And I think that there's a stigma with golf that, oh, you can just show up, slap a few balls around, and you're done. No, honestly, what I'd really love in a complete dream world with unlimited money is we take that back tee, we renovate it all with a gym, bays, the whole 9 yards, and if somebody shows up with a bad attitude, all right, fine, you got to go run the driving range. Like, you got to go run the driving range like 10 times or something like that. Because I think that without consequence, like, it's just hard to push people. And consequence can be anything. It can be running laps, or it could be sucking at your golf game.
Right. And that consequences that motivates people is different for different things.
Bingo.
For different people.
Yep.
And so, that's, to me, that's the changing factor for us, is how do we do that, right? And I love your 1-3-5. I don't start your New Year's resolution without doing this.
No, that's why New Year's resolutions burn out, because there's no plan. I just want to do this. Okay, well, what is it going to take to get there?
Right. It's so simple, but how many times do we need to be reminded of it?
Sometimes the simplest things, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the actions are responsible for 80% of the success.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things about, like, being around. Yeah, that makes total sense. It's one of the things to me that makes, people are like, I don't need to go to church. Like, if you're on the Christian side, like, I don't need to go to church. It's like, yeah, you think you're going to come up with the right mindset on your own, sitting by yourself in a room with a book? Like, no, you're not. Like, the reason to go there, we talk about getting in the room, right? Like, you need to be in the environment. If that's actually how you want to live your life and that's the type of thing you want to do, you got to be in that environment on the regular basis. If we go from the strict secular world of it, like, all right, I want to become one of the best coaches in the country. Well, you better hang around and watch and read things that the best coaches are doing. But go find the best coaches and go spend time around them. Like, you can't you're not going to get what you want unless, again, that's the 1-3-5. That would probably be it might be one of the 3, but it's certainly going to be in one of the 5 is, all right, I need to get around better players. Like maybe one of the things is, I need to have mental toughness on the golf course. That would be one of my 3. Well, under that 3, that one is going to be 5 more, which would be I need to play around better players. That would be that's getting in the room.
I think that's
right?
one. Yep.
That's one. It would be I need to make my practice harder.
There's 2. Okay, well then I would ask you to define that.
So that would be too vague, right? So then it would be
I want to make 100 4-footers in a row.
Yeah. I'm going to do that twice a week.
Yep.
Or attempt it at least twice a week.
And you can see how after
that was crazy.
I
went to try to put a 5 on there, and it wasn't
correct.
It was too vague because that would have just been a 3.
Maybe I would ask you to make the 3 specific as well. But like the point being is that now you have 15 action items that you can take to accomplish one goal.
Well, I don't have anything to do today.
Well,
yeah, you do. You
pick one of them from the 15.
You could. Wow, that's so good. So that's the project. If you're listening to this, set that out. 1-3-5.
So to summarize, you've got one goal. All right, I want to go from a 10 handicap to a 5. Okay, what are 3 things I need to work on? Okay, I need to work on wedges, putting, and my short irons.
And you might need somebody's help to figure out what one of those 3 might be.
Bingo.
You might pick the wrong one.
And you might want to, if you're a student of Scott's, you might want to ask Scott, what do you think you need to work on? Mm-hmm. Right? And so then add the 5 action items off of those 3 tree branches. Okay, if it's putting, I want to make X amount of 3-footers. I want to put X amount of putts within X amount of feet for lag putting. I want to make X amount of up and downs.
This moment,
there's so many things you can do.
This moment just totally transformed cracking the code, specifically for our juniors.
Love it.
Our adults don't quite have the same time.
Sure.
This is Erica's next session with the kids is actually going this deep.
Well, and the beautiful thing with the 1-3-5, it's meant for people who are really, going to dive deep into what they want to do. But you can make
career,
that
your profession, your family.
I obviously use
finances.
it for real estate, right? So it's like you use it. You can use it. You can make it as hard or as easy as you want. I would make it as hard as you can with the time that you have. And that's why I think the juniors are really good. If you're an adult, I think you can still make a 1-3-5 that is going to be easier on your day-to-day life as well.
Yeah.
So I just push yourself to do that.
And again, you don't do all the 15 every day.
Right.
But it gives you a place to go.
Yep.
And maybe it can help you structure the days you do have to practice. Like, all right, I've got 5 days to practice. I've got 3 days of practice. 5 days of practice. I'm going to work on 3 of these things each day for every week. And so over the course of a month, I've worked on everything multiple times.
And if you want to increase the difficulty, specifically with a more vague goal, when I say vague, I don't mean vague. I mean like a performance goal that you can't measure. Like, for example, if I want to be X strong in the gym, if I want to lift X amount of weight, or if I want to go from a 10 handicap to a 5. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is you can make like, okay, I need to accomplish my 5 every single week if you want to work towards that goal, right? Or it can be based out in, I want to do all this in a month. I want to do all of this. I would stray away from the year. I would say go up to maybe a quarter at most. But really, I would say try and do this every single quarter.
6 months would be a definite cap, but giving it a 3 month, like cracking the code's perfect, right? It's 4 months.
Yep.
So, and Erica's next meeting with these kids is going to be they have basically 3 months left of cracking the code. So
you kind of have to be the master of your own destiny and say, well, how long do I really think this is going to take? And then set time goals based on that.
And here's the other thing I'm thinking. This is going to get parents totally locked into what we're doing as a program.
Yeah, because guess what? It's measurable.
Right. And they can see, wow, they really thought this through, and they're sat down with my kids. Like, these are what my kids are doing. Now I don't have to look to the coach and go like, hey, coach, are you doing everything you need to do? It's like, my kid hasn't done the things that already been given to him. In
Bingo.
Fact, half the things my kid chose.
Bingo. And it's also accountability, right? And when you sit down with those kids and you make that 1-3-5 with them and they haven't done it, okay, now the burden's on you, buddy. Why haven't you done it? I've done my part.
I gave you the structure in the 1-3-5, and you're struggling to fill out the 5 for each one, but I'm helping. Like, we've gotten it.
Yep.
So what do you do?
Yep. And it teaches accountability, which also teaches mindset, which is the whole point of the podcast.
And that's
we're
a wrap.
done. No, it actually is. We're done here. But thanks guys so much for
That's so
listening.
good.
I really hope this has helped anybody who is struggling with mindset. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about this one, rather than some of the other podcasts that we've done on mindset, is we've kind of talked about mindset in a general sense, and in some ways we did today too. But I think I really enjoyed when we got really granular towards the end and said, okay, these are measurable things, and you can determine the person who either makes the 1-3-5 or sets your action plan or your whatever your goal is. Now the burden is on you, and the accountability is on you, and I think that's really what makes mindset and a championship mindset. And if you can get over that, dude, there's nobody you can't beat.
I don't have anything to say.
I love it. Well, I guess I'll
other than go and get some cool swag.
Yeah,
please
go and get some cool swag for Christmas. We'd really appreciate it. It'll be on Scott's Instagram at @ShassyGolf.
You got to hurry up and get it, otherwise it'll take a little longer to get there because it has to be the way I have it. It has to be made and then it has to be sent to you.
Yep,
So.
Bingo. And then you can find me on Instagram. Jack Beard Real Estate is my work one. _J Beard is my personal one. And of course, make sure you follow FBPI Golf, Franklin Bridge Performance Institute Golf. So really appreciate you guys listening to this episode of the Champions Playbook. If you have found any value in this, send this episode to somebody that you know who could use the episode, and we really appreciate you guys. So we're going to try and do one holiday podcast this December where we're actually going to be in the pub like old times and do this. So if you guys want to come out, make sure that you follow @HassyGolf on Instagram to figure out when that date is.
I didn't know we were going to do that, so we're going to do that.
Bingo.
So good.
From
Awesome.
Jack and Scott inside the studio here at Franklin Bridge. We'll see you on the next one. It's been the No Mulligans podcast. Peace.